I wanted to ask you, I'm going to kind of like flip this tables out on you guys. So I wanted to ask you a question, both of you guys. I want to know if you guys have the guts to be a citizen. Do you have what it takes to be a citizen of the
Oh, wait,
Federation?
whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you actually playing this game?
Do I have the guts to be a citizen of the Federation? I absolutely do. I will serve on the USS Enterprise. I will defend the borders against the evil Klingons or Romulans, whoever. You're talking about the Federation, right?
Not Star Trek.
Wait.
Not
Just
Star Trek.
I forgot my lightsaber, guys. Where's the Death Star? Can I?
uh,
Mr. Ratcliffe would be disappointed.
It's Battlestar Galactica, right?
there are
Close.
so many. Oh man,
Deep Space Nine?
that's just Star Trek.
Oh, my bad.
I will say this. I will say this. I am glad that, well, not glad. If Slytherin announced a Star Trek game, I don't think I would be here right now. I think literally I'd be probably 6 feet under because the shock of that would reverberate throughout every orifice of my body.
I don't want to know about
Just
the
to the
orifices.
orifices. That's weird. The shockwave would only hit the orifices of my body.
This episode started so weird.
But no, I was really taken back because Slytherin initially made a teaser, I think like almost like a week before they announced Starship. If you guys are not familiar with what we're talking about Starship Troopers. Slytherin and the Aristocrats, the developer behind this game, announced Starship Troopers Terran Command, which is a real-time strategy game of the legendary IP Starship Troopers. And it kind of blew me away. They announced the teaser like a week before I saw this little fucking flying bug. I was like, wow, okay, I know what this is. And when they announced it on Monday officially, I literally dropped my jaw. I wanted to know your initial reactions when you guys first heard about it. What did you guys think?
My initial reactions were kind of meh, actually.
Get the fuck out.
So, I enjoy the first Starship Troopers movie. It's amusing. The second and third were disastrously bad. I've seen them, but the second one doesn't have anyone from the first movie in it. And the third one...
Yeah. It has some nice sex scenes in there, though.
Okay.
It's reverberating from every orifice of his body.
That's where it came from. Okay. Yeah, so the second one was bad. The third one was ridiculous. And then, I don't know if you knew this, Jean, but there's 2 animated movies as well that came after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to see them, and then I watched a review of them, and I heard it was, like, really fucking stupid.
Well, if you like the second one, I don't know why the reviews would hold you back, but...
I like the second one for different reasons.
Anyway, yeah, so in terms of Starship Troopers, I think it's an interesting concept. I haven't read the books, or the book that was written, I think in the 50s or 60s, which has some controversy and interesting ideas around it.
Yeah. Do you know anything about that? Because if you do, please share a little more. I've heard
Not
interesting
a ton.
things.
I think there's some... I've talked with a friend of mine who has read it, but that's not a great source, so I haven't actually read the books. I know there's...
That's as deep as we've ever gotten, so...
We're getting into the literary hour. I talked to a guy who read a book once, and he told me... But I know it touches on sort of the idea, obviously, that the movie talks about the service giving citizenship, but it also has some, I believe, fascist undertones in the book as well. And so the movie, I think, pokes fun at a lot of that, but it doesn't really explore a lot of it very deeply. It's more of a, go shoot 'em up, but also be a little bit absurd about it type of a movie. Which the first one is fine. It's a good movie in that sense, and I think the idea of a global or universal conflict against a bug type species that humanity massively underestimates is interesting from a sci-fi perspective. Humanity kind of the underdog, but there's some scenes in the movie that I think do a good job of, I think if you watch them, they portray bugs as being these massive creatures, hive mind, blah, 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 blah. But there's actually some pretty cleverly cut scenes where it's like, no, actually the humans actually look like bugs in this scene. Like when they're all running to the drop ships or they're all coming off, it's like humans are swarming around just like bugs, which is kind of an interesting portrayal, I think.
I didn't even think about that.
Of humanity in this war. But essentially the movie, the idea is humanity's expanding into space. It's sort of one planet, one country type deal. There's still, different groups of humans that are kind of doing different things. Some of them are trying to colonize their own planets. And then they kind of are interacting with this other species of what they call bugs, which are these creatures that live in space that humanity massively underestimates and sort of becomes a bit incompetent against. And you see this very militaristic society going to war against these species. And I think the movie is I've watched it several times. It's a good movie. I wasn't begging for a game. It's not.
Oh, I was.
So this is the thing. This is what I would say. If you were really interested in this movie or this lore, and the only thing I would say is that the book is supposed to be very serious, and the movie is completely like tongue-in-cheek and everything.
Oh shit, really?
So, I don't think...
book is it's intending to be very serious. I don't want to say I know much about it because, again, my knowledge of the source material is pretty limited, but it is very much a serious book.
Yeah, so, but if you were really interested in this, or you thought the universe they've set up was interesting, there's already been like a plethora of games that basically gave you this, and just starting off, first and foremost, StarCraft, man. StarCraft, you could kind of play Terran versus Zerg. It's kind of like the bugs.
Yeah, but I feel like the beautiful thing about this, so from what I understand, I watched a little bit of the live stream that they had. So this is supposed to be a survival RTS, and there's a couple of
Stronghold versus bugs.
So from what I understand is, it's supposed to be similar to that. But there's a couple things that they added in that's going to spice it up. One, the campaign and mission, right? So from what I understand, it's going to be a persistent campaign. So it's going to branch off. So if you're given an order to hold this stronghold, right, and you fail, right, but you get your team out, from what I understand, the campaign is going to branch off that. So it's not going to be a linear campaign. It's going to kind of branch off into different, whether you achieve something or you don't. You could build up your characters. And I feel like because Battlestar Galactica had such an incredible campaign and storyline behind it, I feel that Slytherin is going to kind of drive that with this too. Kind of take people from where Starship Troopers 1 ended and kind of, make an actual good sequel, but in a game. You know what I'm saying? Like kind of continue that storyline, but in this game, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, it might be fine. I will admit, when I heard the Aristocrats were working on it, I was a little bit concerned. I really enjoy Order of Battle Pacific or the various Order of Battle games that they make. But my initial impression was like, oh god, this is not a game that... I don't want this to be a hex-based, turn-based. And thankfully it's not. It's going to be a real-time strategy game, so that's a good thing. But I think when I first heard about it, my thought was, who should be the developer of this? Well, it should be the... is it Black Lab Games, the guys who do Battlestar Galactica? Like, they seem like the best fit for it. So it'll be interesting to see how the Aristocrats, how they handle this. I think, it's interesting. It's an interesting strategy from Slytherin. Clearly, Battlestar Galactica has been successful. I think it's fair to say for them it definitely has. It has over 1,000 reviews on Steam. Not many Matrix or Slytherin games have 1,000 reviews on Steam. So that indicates a lot of people have bought and played the game. Which, maybe this is they're saying, all right, well, Battlestar Galactica worked. What's another IP that has a loyal following behind it that we can kind of go after? And Starship Troopers, let's be honest, is probably not very expensive for them to acquire. I don't think they go to the studio and say, hey, we want to get a license to make a game with your stuff. The studio's probably like, we're gonna make a little money off this? Okay. Like, we're not making anything off it right now. So I mean, that's probably part of it, is that it has a bit of a cult following online, and it's something that translates potentially well into a good RTS. It's just not something that I'm super looking forward to because, other than the movie being okay, I can't say I've been banging down the door asking for more, more Starship Troopers. I will say though that it's interesting. I'm really curious to see how this does, right? Because Battlestar Galactica definitely is more recent, more relevant, has a much larger following, I think is probably safe to say, and so that did well. It will be curious. I'm curious to see how this does, and if this ends up being like, does Slytherin view their niche as being something where they can nip at the heels of some lesser well-known or lesser current big name IP type games, where they can leverage existing fan bases, because that could be an interesting strategy decision. You used to see a lot of these games. I think there actually was an RTS about Starship Troopers years and years ago. I feel like you used to see games that were made out of like IPs like this pretty common, and I don't know if you really see that a whole lot anymore. And there's probably a lot of other, titles out there like this that they could probably mimic if this is successful for them. But Battlestar Galactica was sort of the low-hanging fruit, I think, for them, and it'll be interesting to see how they succeed in certainly a less robust community, although not necessarily any less fanatical, as Jean lead you to understand.
I mean, this IP, Starship Troopers, is, I mean, the original movie, was a cult classic, and I think that's why there's such a large following behind it. Like, as soon as they announced it, like I said, I dropped my jaw. I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Mainly because I love the movie. I watched the movie repeatedly once every probably, year or two or something like that. And I loved it, and I always wanted more. And then once I watched Starship Troopers 2, I was like, no, I'm good. Don't make any more because you guys suck at it. And I always wanted a game, especially based off the first movie, because, I think that puts the storyline in a really nice spot. You want to be that Sky Marshal and say, all right, look, we lost Buenos Aires. Like, we have the entire military. Here's the military. Here's the space fleet. Here are the Marines. Do what you wish. How are you going to take out the bugs? What are your plans? You're in charge. And I love the fact that this game is doing that, right? Like, they're putting you in the shoes of, a battalion commander, it looks like, right? And you'll be given missions and campaigns to eventually eliminate the bug threat. And I really like the fact that it's a real-time strategy game. A lot of people are thinking like, all right, it's probably going to be Age of Empires, Colonial Marines versus fucking bugs. But I feel like there's a lot of things that are adding into this besides the technology tree, leaders that, you never know. We might even run into Johnny Rico. It would be really cool if they actually bring him in, maybe as like a guest voice actor.
Well, he did voice the most recent animated movies, and I don't think and this is not meant as a shot, but I don't think his acting career isn't exactly like flying off the charts right now. So I don't think it would be absurd for him to be involved. But I think, I don't know. It's just, okay, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe it's a good game. I don't know. But I think there's a lot of sci-fi space RTSs out there, to Tortuga's earlier point. So really, what is the appeal to this game specifically, as opposed to everything else that's already out there? And it's just the title.
And the storyline. The storyline is the biggest thing, I would say, because besides, like the graphics, which were absolutely incredible when I saw, and the way the gameplay was just remarkable. I really liked it. But I think the storyline, because like that's what we all want, is a great storyline.